Because I just literally, after they said that, I moved on. And I was kind of like, I still kind of in the back of my mind was like, I know this is a good deal. You know, I'm not understanding. And so I was kind of a little upset at them because I'm like, guys, like we could have all made more than my salary last year on this one deal. But because you don't want to put the time into this with me, we're just passing. And that's what it felt like. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast. It's Friday. We got our vlog going on today. A lot of exciting things happening at TRE here in Austin, Texas. Jobs keep coming in. I'm excited, man. We keep building our team. How are you doing this morning, Alex?
Good.
Nice. What's going
on? Just ready to start the day.
Yeah.
Get everything rolling.
We jumping into a bunch of partnerships, learning as we go. You're looking at some raw land today. I was thinking it'd be cool to talk about all the aspects of land. There's a lot going on when you start looking at big tracts of land and a lot of different things to understand. And for me, I think the ultimate version of what we're doing, or at least what I've been doing in real estate for a long time, is to become a developer, to be able to buy the land and create something with some real value. And I have sold 9.5 acres. I've sold 1 acre commercial tracts, but never got into large scale development. I've seen people that have done it, that have bought 100 acres and parceled them off into 25 acre tracts and sold those off and made a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned this, like, people can view land as it's boring and there's nothing to it. And I kind of wanted to talk through like what my experience was with raw land at Edge when I was working there, and the work that I would do on getting all the information and kind of see if there's some value there for people, and then see what your thoughts are on land and just jump in. And so one of the things, let me quiz you. Let me give you a little trivia. So if someone said, Alex, go get the details on this land, and let's just say it was 5 acres. Let's just say it was 2 acres. What can you think of all the questions that you would need to ask, or you would need to give somebody that's like, go find out this, and this, just off the top of your head? What would be critical to understand about that land? Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Zoning, development, can it be subdivided? Are there any restrictions? Is there any environmental things that would prohibit you from doing anything? Kind of figuring out what's not possible there, mm-hmm. and then figuring out what is possible.
Mm-hmm. So you're right, and then a lot of these things you can do online. So most cities have a GIS zoning map. So zoning is a big one. Flood zone. Getting a survey. Another huge one that's actually kind of hard to figure out sometimes is utilities. So does it have the sewer? Does it have the water? Does it have the electric? And it's not easy to go figure out what the answer is to that. Some people don't know. Some people don't know where these lines are. The 9.5 acres that I sold did not have water to the site, and it cost the buyer, and I was representing the seller, it cost the buyer $150,000 because they had to bring the water under the highway. And so, like, those are huge aspects to know. One time when I was working at Edge, they bought some land for development, and they didn't realize, but there was a huge septic tank in the middle of this property, and, like, it was a big deal. And that was an interesting learning point for me, because you can't really go online and find that out. Like, they just found it through walking, like literally walking the property.
It was underground or what?
Yeah, it was underground.
And it was a plus or a negative?
It was a negative because, they had to get rid of it. Now they had to fill that space. I mean, it wasn't that big of a negative, but it was just interesting to learn that, like, anything, with land, like anything could happen. You could go start developing it and start digging stuff up and figure out that it was, an area where people were dumping oil for 20 years, and that would really, really negatively affect the property. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a lot of moving parts on land, and I think that's why, and there's some unknowns, and I think that's why you can make such good money, is because, one, you're creating something out of nothing in some ways, and then two, you're taking a lot of risks. So a big aspect of it is to find a good architect, engineer, and you got to get these people, because they'll do, a lot of them will do like a preliminary search, and they'll get all this information for you. And you can go find it yourself by going on, like, every city website, at least around here for sure, has different filters. So you can go on there and click like utilities, wastewater, whatever it may be, and it will show it on this map, but sometimes it's hard to understand. And so that's where having a good engineer that will really look at this, and usually they'll charge you like $1,500 for a preliminary report. And for them, man, it probably takes like 2 hours, but they have that skill set of, having done it before, but also knowing what to look into and what to look out for. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to have those relationships. But then if you really want to engage them, then it's like they'll create a plan, and they'll meet with the city with you, and they'll hire the people to do all the utilities and all of that. And so this is a lot of what I've learned, is like the team is so important. And I've met with, on my 9.5 acres, I met with the city of Round Rock, and this is really cool.
Where was this 9.5 at?
It was on 45 in Schultz.
Where's Schultz? East?
Yeah.
Towards 130?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, where Living Spaces is?
That big.
Yeah. It's like 2 properties over. And I had this listing for 9 months, and I was like, this is before I...
How'd you get the listing?
It was actually my uncle, Jack.
Got it.
Yeah, so he bought real estate all over town back in the day, and like he bought this property for his office and then just never did anything with it. And he bought it for like $150,000.
Yeah, let's talk about that for 1 second.
Yeah.
And maybe you have more insight. You obviously do have more insight on this than I do, but your mom used to tell me that Jack would take, profits or whatever and just go buy land. Right?
I haven't ever talked to him about that strategy, but I do know he owns land, and I do know he was planning to potentially have an office there. But he would go find good spots, like along highways, and he bought it for $150,000. We sold it for $1.6 million. Mm-hmm. I'm like, jeez.
Do you know how long he owned it for?
He had it for 15 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I was dreaming of, how am I going to develop this? Because I knew some things about some roads coming in, and I knew about Living Spaces, and Kalahari it's not immediately next to it, but it's a couple minutes away with this new road. So I desperately wanted to buy this property. I was like, man, this is cheap. It was $4.
For $1.5 million, it was cheap?
Yeah, for 9.5 acres, I think it was $4.80 a square foot. Mm-hmm. So I knew that was cheap. Like typically it's more like 10 or 15.
Who bought it?
A guy named Brian Rome, who's going to build a bunch of townhomes. But with 9.5 acres, man, I was like, had all kinds of ideas. Like maybe in the very back you put storage, and on the corner you put a gas station, and like gas stations will pay $1 million for a corner in this area all day long. And I talked to a couple of gas station guys. We were negotiating on it for a while for Jack. But it was like, man, you sell this corner for $1 million, and then you've got 7 acres for $500K. There's a lot you could do with that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have the capacity and ability to go buy that myself. And I considered like telling my mom, I think you should sell all of your properties and go buy this. But it was like, that works for me because of what I want to do. Like if I had that money, but she'd be buying raw land, that's super risky. That's the thing, is there's a lot of risk as far as time frame. right? Like my mom might want to retire in 20 years, and
Yeah, I wonder what the taxes were on that as well. If you're having, non-income producing raw land.
it was somewhere between 12 and 15,000 per year.
It's not an extreme amount, but it's not cheap either.
No, not at all.
For
hell no, that's $1,000 a month at least.
Non-income producing land.
Yeah, and so man, that filled in quick, but just and then actually, I don't know if I ever told you this. If I can find it, I'll give it to you. But I was reaching out to people a long time ago, and I was writing letters. I used to write tons of letters, and this guy ended up being an attorney in Austin. Can't remember his name, but he was a big time player. Like he had a lot of real estate, and he sent me back a 13-page document that he wrote himself.
Yeah, you showed me that.
And his thing was go to the edge of town, find the hot intersections, and buy the land. And it's tricky because obviously that everyone knows that does actually work, but you gotta have money to go store money away for 10, 20 years. That's not easy. But that's a fascinating concept, man, and it's crazy how fast things grow. Like you think that something's far out, and all of a sudden it's the middle of a super hot intersection. And HEB, I don't know if you know this, but they own land everywhere. They just go buy land. They want to put their stores there, but even if there's they're not going to open stores on all those properties by any chance. But if there's some kind of thought that this is good land, they're probably going to go buy it.
Did Jack have cattle or anything out there?
No cattle.
Do you know is there a minimum acreage requirement to have a ag exemption?
That's a good question. I'm sure. I don't know, to be honest.
Because that does decrease the taxes a tremendous amount for non-income producing land, right?
Yeah.
Even if I lease that land to you for $1 a year, but you put your cattle on there and it decreases my taxes for having that on there.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know too much about that. That would be a good thing to look into, just to know, just in general, how that. I honestly don't know how much like the taxes even decrease, like the percent or anything like that.
I know you have to have a minimum of, I think it's 10 acres to hunt with a rifle.
10 acres? You had 9.5.
Yeah, well, to hunt with a rifle, I believe you have to have 10 acres.
Yeah.
Obviously, that probably wouldn't be a great spot to deer hunt. But when I think about raw land, I'm thinking about ways like that, a deer lease, the ag exemption for cattle, ways to minimize the expenses of that piece of land while it's not producing income, or to turn it into income producing, raw land.
You want to hear about my biggest mistake in real estate? So I was doing some work for Advance Auto in Hutto. And this, I used to love doing this, but because with commercial, it's these bigger tracks, and Hutto's kind of small. Like I would do this in Hutto and in Lampasas, like all these small towns. Because Advance Auto, they have a lot of stores in Austin, and they're looking in these smaller markets, and they can't pay that much for property. Like they pay some people think, oh, it's Advance Auto, like they're gonna just pay a couple $1 million. It's like, no, they pay like $500,000 for an acre, which is kind of low in this area. Like for what kind of real estate they want. They want good real estate, and most of the time it's 1.2. So I was doing some work for them in Hutto, and Hutto's pretty small. I got some maps. I printed them out. I had the parcel numbers, ownership. I was taking notes. I would we had these girls that worked for us that would make things look nice, right? And so I'd like make all these hand notes, and they'd put it on a map with like call out boxes and all this stuff. So I had a call out box on every parcel, like, this is 2 acres, this is 1 acre, $15 a square foot, $20 a square foot, $25 a square foot, all the prices on everything in Hutto.
Advanced Auto is your client?
Mm-hmm. And there was this one tract that this guy lived at a ranch in Uvalde, an older guy. And I wrote him a letter.
Where is that at?
Kind of, it's San Antonio, west of San Antonio, like southwest of San Antonio, about an hour out.
Gotcha.
And I wrote him a letter.
1 acre?
Yeah, it was like 1.3 or something like that. And I can show it to you sometime. But he called me back, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to sell." And I was like, "Oh, great!" I remember where I was. Like, I was on 71, and he said, "I want 250." I was like, 250,000? He's like, "Yeah, 250." I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, that's the price of a freaking house. You know, right behind it on a fourth of an acre. You know, smaller than that actually, probably like an eighth of an acre. So I knew this was a good price. That's the only thing I knew. This is a good price, and I took it to my boss, my two brokers. I showed Advance Auto. Advance Auto didn't like it. It was a little bit off. It was on the main road, but it was just, they're picky. And that's the weird thing. It's like, price is important to them, but even though it was $250, they weren't like, "Oh, we'll just buy it." They're like, "No, we need to fit our mold," which I can get that. And so I'm like, "Man, we got to buy this. Like, we have to buy this." And this was my first year in the Edge, and the partners were like, "Man, we understand what you're saying," but they're big into really minimizing risk, like buying something only if they know that the tenant's going to go there. They don't want to go take that risk. I'm like, "Guys, this is, for them, this is chump change."
How does Advanced Auto work in that sense? Do they are they franchises?
No, it's corporate. Yeah.
But who the tenant being Advanced Auto?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So there's these preferred developers, and this guy named Collins was for Advance Auto, and he also did Bojangles. And these guys are developers. They have a good setup. So what they do is they'll buy the land themselves, they'll build the building, but they'll already know that Advance Auto will take this spot before they even buy the land. There's a little bit of risk there.
So the developers own and develop the land and then lease it to Advanced Auto.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Gotcha.
And Advanced Auto, has set numbers on, how much this guy's going to make. It's not unlimited. They're like, "We're hooking you up, and so you're going to make this much over cost." And
but you do all of our all of our locations.
You get to do all of our, get to do all of our locations in Texas and Oklahoma, and then you can do the same thing for Bojangles and wherever.
Okay, so Advanced Auto didn't want it.
Well, hold on. This is important. So he would, once he leased it, he'd build it, lease it to Advance Auto, and then he'd sell the building to an investor that bought the income. So he would go make like $250,000 per deal.
And so these aren't ground leases.
They're just normal leases.
How long are the terms?
10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a killer job, man. I like always respected that. So that was cool. And then anyways, they didn't want the land. My bosses didn't think that a AAA credit tenant would lease it. And so we just had to pass on the deal. And I look back on that and I'm like, if I know what I knew now, then I would have just put it under contract and like wholesaled it or something. I would have done something to make money on it. Even if I would have freaking listed it at $250,000. But I wasn't even thinking that way because I was like, I don't want to, worry about making $7K on this. I'm trying to make $250 because that's the thing. So to clarify, I knew it was worth $500 based on the map I had. I knew the price of everything, and I knew the price of a house in Hutto. So it was just ridiculously cheap, and I just wish I would have been able to do something with it. And I could have now, just with knowledge, not even with money. It wasn't a money thing, because you can go raise. To pull something off like that, you need to go raise 30, 40K.
So is that the end of the story, or did something happen to the land?
Now if you go out there, it's two retail buildings that are being developed. And every time I drive by it, I'm like, damn it, that was the one.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what it sold for?
I'm pretty sure it sold for like a little bit over, like it sold for like 260 or 270.
So he got what he wanted.
Yeah, he got what he wanted, and it was the interesting thing was just that I wrote a letter and he called me back, and my perception was that he lived at this ranch, and he just probably lived out there for the last 40 years and had probably no idea what was going on in Hutto and no idea about the value. And
This is in Hutto? You said it was outside San Antonio.
no, that's where he lives. That's where I wrote the letter to.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
but this land was in Hutto.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was on 685 in Hutto, right by the high school.
Okay.
Do you know 685? Maybe not, but it's like 79 hits 685, and it's kind of a main road over there.
Between Hutto and Taylor?
So I mean, it's just right in Hutto. So, man, I look back on that, and I'm like, man, I could have some commercial land. And that's the power of knowledge, is like I could have put that under contract and wholesaled it or got some partners. I could have done $250,000. If it was like $2 million or $1 million at that time, then I wouldn't be that hung up on it, because I'm like, yeah, that's a stretch. But I could have sold a couple houses and bought that if I wanted to.
Right.
And the problem was, I was looking to my brokers, this was a little bit, I mean, this was like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So I also didn't have nearly the confidence in my ability. And I was looking to them like, guys, like, is this a good deal? And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's not. Maybe I just don't get it. And now looking back, I know it was, and also seeing someone build the retail building over there.
Well, and I think that what you're talking about is important to understand too when you're going to people for advice. Like, you may go to those brokers and it's not fitting the mold of what they're trying to do or what your clients are trying to do. Therefore, it's not a good deal for what they're trying to accomplish there, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good deal.
Yeah, 100%. That's super true. And yeah, that was my learning point, man. It's like, I need to just, take it onto myself to take the risk and have confidence in what I do and what I know, and not, take people's advice, but not have that be the end all be all. Because I just literally, after they said that, I moved on. And I was kind of like, I still kind of in the back of my mind was like, I know this is a good deal. I'm not understanding. And so I was kind of a little upset at them, because I'm like, guys, like we could have all made more than my salary last year on this one deal, but because you don't want to put the time into this with me, we're just passing. And that's what it felt like.
Did you get paid a salary?
No. Well, actually my first year I did, which was pretty rare. But I got lucky, man. A lot of people will come in. It wasn't much. It was like $2,500. It was not really helpful. But most commercial brokers will get that pay as a draw. And
Yeah.
they have to pay it back.
Out of your commission.
Mine was just straight salary. And I actually got it for like 6 months longer than I expected. So it's pretty nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
You just didn't talk about the end date. You just
Yeah, that's a good way to put
just
it.
kept let it going.
Kept going with it. And yeah, it's rare for commercial and any brokerage position to get a salary. So that was helpful. And I also learned a lot, man, is commercials, you have these 2 or 3 year deals that take place, and then you end up splitting the brokerage commission 4 ways. And what seems to be a $60,000 commission turns into 7 on a 3-year deal. That was a little frustrating.
What seems to be a $60K commission?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like you'll have like a partner broker, and then you also split it with the company. So you split it once, and then you split it again. And it turns into being not much. So it's interesting, maybe people don't know this, and we don't do this at our company, but like say I'm going to work a deal with one of our agents, we'll typically, like if we do it that way, we would typically just split the commission before you were a partner. We'd just split the commission 50-50. But the way that they do it at Edge is we split it with the company this way, and then we split it with ourselves. So that changes big time.
Yeah, it's getting cut in half
Yeah.
twice.
And the guys I was working on the deal with were the owners, so they were getting the double split. Which, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Do you stay in touch with Advanced Auto anymore, or any of those clients?
No, not the clients. All my buddies that are in the commercial space, I do. I try to stay in touch with them.
Why don't you stay in touch with clients?
They're Edge clients.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Like I got those clients from Edge.
I follow.
We saw all kinds of stuff. I mean,
the brokerage model. It's the
this is different because, dude, we had these parties. They would throw like $70,000 parties in Vegas. I'm like tripping out. You know, it's like a stack of ribeye steaks over here. Some dude's walking around with cigars. You're on the balcony. You're like, what's going on? I don't know anybody there like that well. Like I know my company kind of well, but I felt like and then these parties would be big.
That's heaven for you. Cigars, steak, casinos.
Well, actually, it was kind of weird because I wasn't gambling, so I just didn't gamble at all, and I didn't like. Sometimes I would like, I don't know. I didn't really enjoy doing all this. So I would be like, I'm just gonna have to get dinner and sneak out and go to bed. Like I don't actually, at this point in my life and at that point, like I don't want to be in Vegas. I'm not about that, right? I know you can go have fun and all that, but I just didn't like it.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, but met a lot of cool people. You'd have these conversations, like you're just like meeting people, like having a drink, and you're talking to someone who owns like $100 million of real estate, and the next person over here does the same. And I'm like, in that sense, that was heaven for me. I'm like really trying to build these relationships. It was wild, man.
So have you been a part of a development ground up?
Yeah.
Start to finish? Mm-hmm. In what sense?
We did the, if you can maybe picture this, but the northwest corner of 620 and 183, Lakeline Mall over there.
The north, yeah.
Literally right on the corner.
Where the Best Buy is?
Right behind it. There's 2 retail buildings. It's got Orange Theory, Fireball, Mattress Firm. There's 2. Yeah.
And Ross is over there too.
Mm-hmm. So they bought that land. Edge bought that land. You probably saw it if you can remember. It used to be like a detention. Like you're like, oh yeah, that's just detention for that shopping center. But they figured out how to buy it and fill that in and built 2 buildings. And they leased it. They knew that these tenants would lease right there. They represented 3/4 of the tenants that leased that space. And
from themselves.
We bought it. Edge bought it and owned it, and then built it and leased it to these tenants, and then sold it with all those tenants in place. And so they made they let everyone at our company invest. Not a lot for me. I invested like $10K or something like that, $12K, as much as they'd let me. I was like, I want to go in more, and it was a 67% return.
Over how long?
2.5 years. Yeah. So they have a couple other projects like that going on in San Antonio, and it's pretty crazy, man. I did one more that I actually sourced. I did it with Learning Experience. This is crazy. In Vegas, we were going to these booths, and me and my buddy Brett were like, let's go talk to this guy. Learning Experience. And we walked in. He's like, yeah, I'm looking for land in Austin. I need a developer. We're developers. So I told him, and he's like, really? Like, yeah, absolutely. And we actually ended up buying land in Leander. He had the land. That's the thing. That's what the point of this stuff is, like, these companies don't always have to own. They just want to get a location to make money, right? He already had the land picked out.
The guy y'all were talking to?
Mm-hmm. He worked for Learning Experience, Omar.
I thought you were saying this was a learning experience.
The Learning Experience, little kid school.
Gotcha.
And they're about to finish that. And we bought the land. We built the building. They signed a lease with us before we did any of this. They signed a 10-year lease. We knew the rent that they were going to pay, all of that. So you take that lease, and it's very valuable. So you can go to the bank with that lease and get lending on a project with all the, you have to have the development plans and all that. So we built the building for them, and they're actually buying it back at closing at a set price. And the way that it works is typically if you bring a deal like that, you'll get like 15% of the profits from the development. But I got the commission on buying the land. I got the commission on signing the lease, and then we'll get commission on selling the building. And ended up being a lot less than I was thinking, because I had to, split it again. It's in Leander, and I think it's going to be done in like a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, literally walked into a booth.
Edge does that. They buy the land, develop it, lease it, and sell it.
Yeah, they've done so. Like they did it. They were kind of like they always were doing tenant rep and were really good at it. And then JLL and some of these other companies like went all in and
on tenant rep.
No, on developing, but representing the tenants that they would develop for and started making a lot of money. So Edge, like the one that I was telling you about in Lakeline, was like their second or third deal. And then they did one over by the Domain, like right when you're pulling into the Domain on the kind of on the front side is there's like 2 retail buildings with AT&T and stuff like that. And so I think what happened was they started like really seeing how that worked and wanting, because these guys would go invest like $1 million, and like the whole company would be like excited about this project and waiting for it to close. I'm making my $6,000, like they made like $1 million in profit, and we all go celebrate. And I'm like, damn, like we got to do more of this. And so they just maybe they're doing that even more now. It was in the middle of the beginning of that process, and so they saw how it worked, and then now they want to go do that as much as they can. Probably even more focused on that than tenant rep.
So how do you minimize risk in a project like that?
The tenant's the key, really. Like if you get the tenant to sign a lease, like you're pretty much good to go.
Before it's built.
Yeah, your timelines have to match up, because the other thing that you have to understand is...
And also how much of that is financed? Keep going. These are just questions I have.
Yeah. It's really, there's a lot to it, but whenever you're, like Advance Auto would come to town. We'd go drive them around. They'd pick out some sites. We'd go throw some LOIs out, get some stuff under contract, but then there's like multiple committees that have to approve these deals. So once you get under contract, we'd have to do all this work for them. That's kind of what I hated about it. I felt like I was an employee for Advance Auto, and these real estate guys, they get paid salaries. Like these, I forget what, real estate manager or whatever it is.
For Advanced Auto?
Yeah, these guys that do this for these big companies, they're not the brokers. They find brokers, and they go to town, and the brokers show them around, and then these guys like help make decisions based on, they'll go run analytics on like, they can, in some of these companies, they have a pinpoint, they drop it in, and it will probably tell them what their sales would be at that store. And so these guys like weren't really real estate guys, in my opinion, a lot of times, but they're like our bosses in some ways, and
they're your clients.
Yeah,
they're representing your clients.
They're our clients. It's just a different thing because we do a lot for them, a lot more than a typical agent. I guess if you're thinking about residential, because you're expected to wine and dine them and all this stuff, and it's like we're not even making that much money, right? I'm buying these guys $100, $200 dinners, and I don't have that much money. They probably won't be closing the deal because it's 50-50 sometimes, and it's kind of weird, especially when you're like 22, 23, and you're like, this guy is like worth 3 times as much as me. So, and there's a lot to it, but basically, they treat you like you work for them, whereas in other cases, in my opinion, you treat it like you work together. And anyways, we'd go through these. They had to go through these committees, right? And so, one thing to back up, the Advance Auto guy would be like, "Call on that building," and it's like that's a 3-story office building that's fully leased. I already know we can't buy it. I don't need to go get the story. We can only pay $500,000 anyways. But I'd have to go get the answer.
Why would they want to buy an office building anyways?
Because he wants to tear it down
and build.
Which makes no sense. Like, I mean...
Real estate guys.
Thank you. I'm like, God, I got to go get the freaking story and track this owner down to tell him the price is $3 million. I already know that, you know. But you tee it up, you get it lined up, you create all these packets, demographics, you get all the sales. Like I'd have to go, and they would tell me like, go get the sales numbers from Chewy's. I'm like, how the hell am I gonna do that? Like, just go on in there and talk to someone and get the number. And then you start talking to all these other brokers, and they're like, you get all these stories about how they do it, and it's like, damn, this is fascinating. Like, there's this one guy, Steve, in Dallas, and he knows all the people in restaurants, so he just knows the sales because he can just call them. But you go and talk to the manager, and you're like, you know, how's this place doing? You know, doing about $50,000 a week, $40,000. You know, you just try to get a number out of them, and it's not even. You don't even know if it's accurate. That's the weirdest part. Is like, you'd be like, yeah, this is their sales. Like, how the fuck do we know this is their sales?
Right, you're not looking at a T12.
No, and so like we would put those numbers in these reports, and they would count on these as being accurate. And I've seen how it works. Is like nobody knows. Like maybe they're close sometimes, but
so Advanced Auto was wanting to know what.
No, this is like for Buffalo Wild Wings. This is just in that world. But you get it all lined up. They go to committee, and
where's this committee?
Wherever their headquarters are.
Committee with who? Advanced Auto?
Yeah, with whatever retail company you know. And then like this is the first time that the decision maker is looking at this deal. Like the actual decision maker. And everything's teed up. It's like, we got under contract. Here's the number. Like, that's why we have to do all this work to make it easy. And they're just like, nah, no deal. You know? And so we're like, oh my gosh, we just wasted 6 months doing this. That was the first, you know, if your real estate guy is good enough and the deal is good enough, hopefully they say yes. But that doesn't always happen. And another thing, I had 9 deals under contract with Advanced Auto, and something happened with their earnings, and they're like, "Yeah, our earnings are pretty bad.
We're ceasing all real estate."
I'm like, that was my whole life of making money. Like I had put all my time into Advanced Auto. So I mean, that's how brokerage goes. You know, it happens to everyone.
So how much of these projects are financed? You find the land.
What percentage of it?
Yeah.
Mostly probably 75%. They can get like they do all these things with you. Do the, short-term interim loan that's transitioned into permanent financing, and you get the bank on board. And
well, so you buy the land, 75% financed. Mm-hmm. Then how much the construction is financed?
Most of it, pretty much all of it, depending on who the partners are and the credit and all that stuff.
Track record.
Yeah. And then, I mean, they pay for the construction and everything. And then you wrap it into the new loan. And a lot of times there's a lot of profit there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I've been on the other side with actually building it in like with another company and seeing all the things that can go wrong on development. Like, stupidest thing, but roof leaks. I was in this huge building, and it was like every week, this is when I was interning, every week is like, there's a leak. And we had 10 people there like, well, it's this guy's fault. They're like, no, it's this guy's fault. It's this guy's fault. It's like, oh my gosh, how do we solve this? And it's not an easy answer. The architect blames the roofer blames the sub, whatever. And the only time we know when it leaks is they got to get up there and freaking spray with water hoses. And I'm like, this is like just crazy,
Wild card.
Like no one can figure this out. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So anyways, man.
Well, how do you minimize, obviously this is a very complex answer, but generally speaking, how do you minimize risk in a new development project?
The tenants. Having the tenants on board and feeling really comfortable with them, and ideally having a signed lease. Also, by knowing the real estate's really good. The more comfortable you feel with the property, the more you realize you have other backup plans as well.
Well, think about like new construction apartment complexes. They don't have tenants going in. I know that they're trying to pre-lease these, years out, right?
Yeah.
A year out, however long they can. But I mean,
that comes down to the real estate, right? Like these guys have all these analytics, and ways to understand what demand is, that for the most part, if it fits that model and they can go look at all the inventory, all the people moving here, all the stuff that's coming online, and just know for the most part that it's going to work. And if the real estate's good enough, then it's like definitely more risky, but you just build it. If you build it, they will come, I guess, and they know that it will work because they've analyzed like that specific market, and they're like, there's a shortage of supply. And I used to do that with self-storage. We would go and we would try and find out which complexes were vacant or fully leased, and you can tell by if it has a lock on the deal a lot of times. And if you're looking
on the door.
Yeah, if you're looking at building storage and you go to every storage facility within 5 miles and they're fully leased, that's one like really positive sign.
Yeah. Mobile home parks.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
We need to get those refis going and get ready for that. I'm excited about the mobile home park.
Yeah. 14. Yeah, we got a mobile home park under contract, and that's gonna be my most exciting deal for sure.
Ever?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just mobile homes. It's got retail, commercial.
Mm-hmm. Love the location.
Yeah. But the reason I said that is mobile home parks have pretty much zero vacancy here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And the tenants stay there for 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's so many different...
When I was calling these mobile home parks, acting like I was, trying to lease from them, it was like I was inconveniencing them. It was just a waste of their time. They're like, we're, full,
yeah. Get on the list.
Right. I was like, that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a great sign. We'll have to dive into that deal. I think that would be a good podcast. That'd be a really good podcast about how we found it and what we're doing, and we could maybe even do a vlog out there, show everybody what's up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I got for today. It's interesting to dive back into that world of commercial real estate.
And just so you know, I wasn't saying that all this is boring, but in terms of video footage, when we go out there and we're recording the land.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear you. I totally get it. We'll see what happens. I think I wanted to touch on this a little bit because maybe it's going to be valuable for you to think through some of this stuff.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
So we'll see you guys. Today's Wednesday that you're viewing this.
Oh, now I'm like, man, I'm lost.
But, I guess it's not going to link up. Anyways, if this comes later, you have to go back and watch the vlog where we go check out the raw land with the legendary Rick Stein right up there somewhere.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Hope y'all have a good day. Thank you for always tuning in. Please like our channel, subscribe, click the link below. We're here to add value, help any way we possibly can. We are pretty versatile. We've been doing this for a while and have a lot of experience. So I tell people all the time, if you're not reaching out and at least picking our brains for stuff, like you're missing it, because we're here to be a resource, and there's a good chance there's something we can help out with. So thank you guys, and hope you have a great day.
You have a good day. See you next time.